Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mouse House. Today we are doing a sort of ride review of the one and only Rise of the Resistance, and our boarding group is being called right now, so let's head over. Before we get into the review itself, I want to explain my quote-unquote grading scale. The attractions I review I will be putting into different tier groups. There will be 5 of these tiers, the best being tier 1 and the worst being tier 5. During our reviews, each attraction will start in the N tier, which means we have not covered a reason for them to move up. There are 5 categories we will be reviewing attractions on, and for every one that this attraction passes, it will move up a tier. The 5 categories are queue theming / pre-shows, storyline, projection / physical illusions and effects, 360 degrees, and use of the ride system. To elaborate on a few, 360 means that there is stuff to see that's part of the story all around you. Use of the ride system essentially means that the story trying to be told was done with the right ride system. For example, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh is not a high-intensity roller coaster for a reason. With that, let's get started into today's review. For our first category, we have queue theming / pre-shows, and oh boy, where do I get started. This attraction has an awesome queue that takes you into the secretly carved out Resistance base. You get to see their arsenal of weapons and suits. The base itself looks like it was put together quickly by the Resistance, which makes perfect sense as they are always on the run from the First Order. Then once you get through the queue, you are greeted by the first of many pre-shows. Here you meet an incredible BB-8 droid and are briefed by Rey about your mission. But you see, this appearance by Rey is actually in hologram form, which looks absolutely incredible in real life. This pre-show throws you right into the Star Wars universe with this iconic hologram that seems impossible in real life, and therefore convinces you that you are in a Star Wars film. After this pre-show, you go outside to get ready to board your Resistance transport. On the way, you run into Poe's X-Wing and BB-8 loaded up into it, ready for takeoff. Then in no time, you are in your next pre-show, which is in the Resistance transport. You are greeted by an incredible Lieutenant Beck animatronic that looks so real because in the films, these characters were actually puppets, which allows Imagineering to create animatronics that look just like those puppets that were used to create the movies. Well, you then take off and start a sort of Star Tours styled segment. While you are in the Resistance transport, the First Order gets a hold of you with a tractor beam. They pull you into their Star Destroyer, and then the same doors that you entered from reopen, but you are now greeted by the First Order and tons of stormtroopers in a hangar bay. This massive room could be considered a pre-show itself, with tons of animatronic stormtroopers and life-size TIE fighters. But you are in the capture of the First Order, so they lead you to an interrogation room, where on the way you get to walk through a Star Destroyer that is screen accurate. It is absolutely incredible to walk through a Star Destroyer, a dream of so many huge Star Wars fans. When you eventually get to the interrogation room, you begin another pre-show. Here you are greeted by Kylo Ren as he tries to get the location of the Resistance base out of you. Luckily, he has some other matters to attend to and he leaves. When he is gone, the Resistance cuts through your interrogation room's walls and breaks you out. And then, you officially start the ride. So with all of these pre-shows doing a great job setting up the story, we are going to give Rise of the Resistance its first tier bump up, so now it is in tier 5. Now we are moving on to talking about storyline. From incredible pre-shows to the climax of this attraction, every part of this ride contributes to telling an excellent story. The pre-shows, as we just talked about, take you right into the Star Wars universe. After the Resistance breaks you out of the interrogation room, of course you still have to get out of the Star Destroyer. The plan laid out by Finn tells us that we are trying to get to the escape pods to get out of the Star Destroyer. On the former prisoners' way there, they encounter stormtroopers and AT-ATs that are all constantly shooting at you. However, after they fail to get us, Kylo Ren comes after us himself. From cutting holes above you with his lightsaber, to using the Force on your entire ride vehicles, we barely escape thanks to a hole being blasted in the ship behind Kylo Ren. It also allows us to just barely get into our escape pods and fly back to Batuu, somewhat safely. This ride had me engaged from the second I stepped into the queue, and its story is executed very well. This ride truly takes you into a Star Wars movie as you make an iconic escape from a Star Destroyer. To be part of something like this has been a Star Wars fan's dream ever since the very first movie came out. This takes immersive storytelling to a whole new level that we will hopefully see more of in the future. And for all of those reasons, Rise of the Resistance will be moving up to Tier 4. Now for our next category, projection/physical illusions and effects. And yes, there is a lot. Starting in the first pre-show, we have the Ray hologram, which is absolutely incredible. I'm not going to be talking about how it works, but if you would like to know these kinds of things, let me know in the comments below and I will talk about them in future videos. Then the next incredible effect is how the same doors you entered the Resistance transport in are the ones that take you into the hangar. I'm sure most of you could guess how this works, but it really shows the Disney difference. They could have just let it be the other side of doors, but they went to that extra level to add to the immersion. And a funny story, when I rode this ride during this pre-show when it was coming to an end, this family shoved through us to get to the doors that they thought were going to open so they could get ahead of us. They ended up being one of the last ones to get out because it ended being the same doors we entered from. Alright, on to the next effect. In the interrogation room, the characters that interact with you are actually being projected. I've heard many people think that they are actually actors. That projection tech alone would be an incredible effect, but I want to specifically point out that Disney even made their shadows appear on physical set pieces. Most people probably don't even pick out the fact that their shadows are there, but subconsciously, it helps convince them that these people are really there. Now, while you are in this interrogation room, there are walls all around you. Well, Disney has managed to create an effect that seems like the Resistance is cutting through those walls and then pulling that piece out of the wall. This part is stunning as you can stand so close to the effect. Sometimes Disney has distance to pull off these effects, but you can be touching this wall, so the fact that they can convince people that this is happening when they are just inches from it is absolutely incredible. Another very impressive effect is when holes are blasted in the walls while you are being shot at. A surface can go from being perfectly clean and untouched to being filled with blaster holes and damage. This effect is also seen on a bigger scale when the wall behind Kylo Ren is blasted out and the vacuum of space tries to pull him away. The next effect, and arguably the best, is when Kylo Ren is chasing you down and uses his lightsaber to cut through the roof above you. This effect is absolutely stunning, and there are no words to describe how good it looks when you're there in person. So yes, there are quite a few effects and illusions, and for that, Rise of the Resistance is moving up to its next tier, Tier 3. Next up, we are moving on to the 360 degrees category. This ride puts you into the Star Wars universe no matter where you look. Every single detail you might find is there for a reason. They perfectly captured the aesthetics of a Star Destroyer. This might as well be a movie set with no CGI needed. I do want to give a special shout out to the space windows because you see, these aren't just screens attached to the front of the glass. You're actually looking out at a curved projection dome. What this does is allow the image to change with your perspective. So you see, in this frame, there is no ship here in this window, but then as you move forward and your perspective changes, you can now see the ship. If this was just a flat screen, it would never adjust with your movement. And you can even follow the same ship in all the other windows because they are all looking out at the exact same projection dome. This adds to the attraction being 360 because if it was just a flat screen, these space windows would take away from the immersion and be quite obviously just a screen. And the attraction as a whole has achieved complete immersion. Everywhere you look, whether in the front or in the back, you will be truly convinced that you are in a Star Destroyer. So for that, Rise of the Resistance bumps up another tier into Tier 2. Now on to our final category, the use of the ride system. There are multiple ride systems in this ride, but we are going to start with the main one, the trackless ride vehicles. These are the perfect choice for this ride, as in the Star Wars universe, these kinds of things exist. There are fully autonomous droids, transports, and more. The ride system screams Star Wars. It fits the story well with being a prisoner transport and is overall a really great choice. Then eventually you enter the escape pod, which is a simulator attached to a drop tower. This works really well and is really the only option to make a return back to Batuu. The drop tower itself was not necessary, but it added that extra element to make this simulator feel even more real. Then I know this isn't the ride system itself, but I love how you get to exit outside. It adds even more realness to it because it feels less like an attraction exit and more like a return back from the mission. Some attractions, you get off and walk on a moving platform and there are cast members telling you to watch your step. Well, that makes it obvious that you just rode a ride. Well, when you exit outside and walk right back into Batuu, in a way it continues the attraction and continues to push the message that what you just experienced was real. And for that, Rise of the Resistance moves into the Tier 1 category. This highly immersive dark ride has earned a spot in the Tier 1 category. It is a feat of Imagineering that creates a whole new standard of Disney attractions. This ride has everything that checks off every single tier that I designed for these reviews. As far as answering the question that is the title of this video, I wouldn't say it's the best dark ride in Disney history, simply because some things have that nostalgia factor, but this ride is really setting a new standard and is overall an absolutely incredible experience that has a well-deserved spot in Tier 1. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Let me know in the comments below what ride you want me to review next. If you enjoyed the video and want another way to support the show, we have a merchandise store as well as a Patreon page. You can also follow us on Instagram or email us directly. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time.